make a start then. We're going to be using the flower blooms stencil. Well, I'm not going to be stenciling, but I've stenciled already this morning because I didn't want to take up time doing that, because we're making a card, but I just wanted to run through die cutting and embossing with these, because I know several of you are having a few problems with lining them up and everything. Okay, so we're using both of those. I'm also using the bold phrases, which I know have sold out, but any of Lisa's die cut phrases or words will work just in exactly the same way. So, you know, don't stress about the fact that you can't get what I'm using. I know a lot of you have already got it, so, but the bold words will work equally as well. I just wanted to use this one because it just fits the card, although to be fair, all of these will fit on the card I'm doing, so you know, you've got plenty of choice. So we're using those, and then I'm also using these two sets. Okay, so let's go through the die cutting and the embossing first, and then we'll get on to making the card. So I've stenciled these this morning, and the only reason I've used these colours is because they go with the card that I'm making. Not particularly the pink veins, but it was sort of I just rushed the stenciling a bit really. So we've got all our dies and we've got our stenciled piece. Now the one thing you won't ever be able to do is put them all in your embossing folder and emboss them all at the same time, because they won't line up properly. You might think they will. I mean, they look as though they will. Well, perhaps I'm wrong with the leaves. Perhaps the leaves will. I know the flowers won't, but the leaves will. You can do it this way round. I know we always say die cut first and then emboss, because you will squash your embossing. But if you wanted to emboss them first and then die cut them, it's an easy way of getting your dies to sit on your stenciled piece. Okay, so what I'm going to do, I'm going to run this through the machine to emboss it, and then you'll see what I mean. So I'm doing it off camera obviously, because I can't fit this on my desk and everything else. So if I just run this through the die cutter and take that out, you can see that's all embossed really, really well. I just think it's beautiful. But if you emboss it first and then add your die will sit around your embossing, and it will sort of seat itself around that embossing, so you'll know that you've got it in exactly the right place. Okay, so that will seat round your embossing, and then you can cut it out. And I know it will squash your embossing, so I'm going to actually emboss it just so that you can see how easy it is to re-emboss it. And I'm going to do this one at the same time, I think. Just really to show you how easily these seat around your embossed pieces. So if I just pop that on my die cutting machine and run it through, bear with. I'm not going to do all these leaves obviously, because they're all working exactly the same way, but it's just really to show you how easy it is. You know, at the end of the day, it's a piece of card. Please don't stress about it. I think sometimes we get hung up on it doesn't look right, or it hasn't embossed right, or whatever. But there are ways around things. I'm going to emboss one wrong in a minute, just to show you that you can correct it. And you can't cut them all at once is because sometimes the dies actually overlap. So if I was to put these two particularly, that's that one. So if I put that there and then try and put this one next to it, can you see, if I lift it up slightly, that one's sitting round there, okay? if I try and put this one around this embossing, it's going to overlap this die, and you're going to dent your dies and you will spoil them. So whilst, yes, you look as though you can, because it's sitting on top of this one, you're going to squash your dies. And because this cutting line is on top of this, you're going to spoil your cutting line, and it's not going to cut out properly afterwards. Okay, so please don't try that. Do them individually. You can do 2 or 3 at one time, because if you choose opposite ends, so like I could do that one. Oh look, my tape's pulled my ink off, but never mind. I can go over that if I want to. And you can do that one that end, and you could probably do that one at the same time as well. So you can cut more than one, but you can't cut them all, because they will overlap, and then you'll spoil your dies, and well, you're not going to be able to get an odd die, are you? It's just not going to work. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to emboss this one wrong. Okay, sorry, I'm going to die cut it, and then I'm going to run it through the embossing machine twice. So I'm going to run it through and move it, and then I'm going to run it through again, so that you can see that a second emboss will like erase the wrong bits, if you're with me. I'll show you what I mean. Let me cut this one out. Bear with. If I run that one through without squashing on the others. Right, so I've run that through, and say I haven't embossed it, okay? And I put it in my embossing folder, and I line it all up. And then as I take it to the die cutting machine, it's going to move in the folder. So can you see? That is not lined up on the embossing folder properly. Can you see that? You can see that there's an embossed line here, but that the leaves have slipped, okay? So I'm going to run that through, and you'll see how odd it looks, because obviously it's not embossing in the right place. But what I don't want you to do is panic and think, oh, that's no good, I'll have to scrap that now. So you can see here, it's not embossed right at all, has it? In fact, it's actually creased the card because it isn't in the right place. So what we're going to do is we're going to put it back in the right place. Now it's a bit difficult because your eye is drawn to the embossed line. Alright, so you just have to ignore the embossing underneath, but you can do it. So if I line this up as best I can, and then run it through again, what you'll find is it erases the wrong embossing, and it embosses it right the second time. See? So your embossing from the first time has disappeared, and your embossing from the second time is the right one. So if your die cuts move in your embossing folder, don't panic. Just relocate it and run it through again. So you can see there that the bad embossing has gone, and you're only left with the decent embossing that is right. Okay, so you can always re-emboss it to put it right. Okay, so your leaves, I think, are the easiest part to do. All right, so if I get rid of those, we can move on to the flowers. Now the flowers are a little more intricate, and they take a little bit more time, and it's worth spending the time. They just take a little bit more time to line up. So I know people are struggling to line these up. Now I find it weird that we all struggle with the most simple patterns and shapes rather than the more complex flower shapes. So like I would have thought people would struggle more with these, but they don't. They're struggling with these four really. So again, you won't be able to emboss all these all in one go, because if you line up the top ones, and I'm not going to be able to do it because I need to cut that piece off, but if I cut that piece of card down and try and line it up, you will find that whilst it looks not too bad, they won't all line up properly. So if you line up the top two like so, so those top two are lined up, can you see that these down the bottom here aren't? So although you're lining these two up, sorry, you couldn't see that, could you? If you're lining these two up, as you move down the embossing folder, the others won't. And if you try and line these up, these will move. So what I do is I cut them into twos, right? So I'll cut them across the middle here. You've got to be careful because obviously you've got a die to go on top of here as well. But if you're careful and you cut them in twos, you can then locate them into your embossing folder. And again, I would say, for me personally, I would emboss them in twos and then die cut them and then just run them through again, because then you will be embossing them individually, but because they're embossed, they're going to sit in your embossing folder neater, and they're going to they're going to sort of sight themselves into that embossed, that debossed side. Are you with me? So let me show you. If I emboss these first, okay, so I've embossed those, and now I'm going to die cut them, and I'm going to die cut them second because having had them embossed will help me to line up my dies. All right. Now I know Lisa's said this before, and I think I've said it before as well. Look for a piece on your die that matches your stenciled piece, okay, and try and stick with that. What I've done on these two particularly is I've marked the die, okay, so I've sighted it round my stenciling, and I've decided which way round, because there is always a best way. You know, they look the same all the way around, but there's always a best way. Don't forget you've always got like a little 1mm offset on all of these flowers and the leaves. So you're not looking for not being able to see any white around these petals. You'll always see a little bit of white. But once you've sighted it and you're happy that it's the right way up and it's the right fit, put a little mark at the top of your die, and then you know it's always going to be the right way up. Okay, and I would do that on those two definitely, and possibly these two, but I don't think there's a problem with those. These two are the ones that I would mark your dies with. So with this one, we're looking for just one little piece. Have I got the biggest? No, I think I've got the right one. Just move your die round until, there you go, that's big round fat flower petal here, and this is quite round and sort of plump, if you like. So once you've found where it sits, again you can mark this if you want, and all I've done is use a Sharpie pen and just mark it at the top. That way you won't have to fight with it every time you use it. Okay, so I would put that on I would tape it, to be honest, because it's a die and your bottom plate on your die cutting machine is going to be magnetised 99% of the time. You don't want to risk it moving, so I would always tape it down when you're die cutting, just to be on the safe side. Okay, so we've die cut that one. Try not to put your tape on the inside of the dies. You don't want to lift your ink on what you've already done. Okay, so that's die cut, but I've die cut an embossed piece, so it's flattened my embossing. So all I'm going to do is pop it back in here, and again look for the fat petal here and line it up with the fat petal on the embossing folder, and it will seat. You'll feel it sort of seat itself in the right place. Okay, hold it in place. It's a bit tricky, but you can do it, and just keep your fingers on the embossing folder until you've put it down and you've put your other plate on top of it. Don't forget to change your plate combination, because obviously it's different for embossing than it is for die cutting. And then you're left with an embossed flower that looks really beautiful. Okay, I always do it. I do it with double embossing because for me it's the easiest way. I find that once you've got that embossed piece and you look for the place in the debossed side of your embossing folder, once you've got that flower seated, it's going to work beautifully. So if I just do the rose and then we can get on to making the card, just to show you. What am I doing? Cutting it out, Dawn, that's what you're doing. So I need to find the rose, the right die. Now again, you're looking at this, at the shapes of your die that sort of sits within your flower. It's sort of, it's quite easy. It doesn't take you long. I mean, they're not big flowers, are they? There you go. So that's seated around my embossing. All right. So I'm just going to stick that down. Try not to stick it inside where you've inked, because you don't want to lift your ink if you can help it. And then pop it back in your embossing folder. Line it up. It will seat itself in the debossed side beautifully. Hold it in place. Get your right plate combination. Run it through. Job's a good one. Okay, see, beautifully embossed. So even if you'd made a mistake the first time you embossed it, the second time you emboss it, it's going to get rid of any incorrect embossing. It's going to do it right. Okay, so I would do them all in exactly the same way. As I say, I don't think the leaves are quite as it's not difficult. Difficult's the wrong word, because it's a little bit time consuming, but I think it's well worth the effort, because when you end up with beautiful flowers like these, it's worth spending a little bit of time and a little bit of effort to get them right. And if you mark your dies, then it's not going to take you any time at all, really, is it? So we'll put those to one side and we'll get on and we'll make our card. So I hope that helps for the people that were struggling with lining it up. I mean, if you're still having problems, please feel free to message me. Not a problem, don't mind at all. And I'll see if I can help. Okay, so this is where we're headed. I love this. I think this is so cute. It's basically a double Z fold card, as you can see, but I've put an extra little sort of retainer here so that it doesn't splay when it stands up, because that's the only problem with these sorts of cards, is they tend to sort of splay out. So if you put like a little bit of a retainer in the middle, then it's not going to do that. It's just going to sit beautifully on the table or whatever. So you can see here I've used the ivy, and I've used Lisa's glitter paste on this. I've used this one, the rose gold, and I've stenciled it. I've done the stems, I've done the leaves, and then I've used the glitter paste where the veins are, and then I've embossed it. Once it's dry, I'd leave it for a good sort of 45 minutes to dry properly. I left mine overnight. So if you're going to do anything like this, I'd say do yourself a batch and put them to one side, and then come back to them and use them, because then all this glitter is going to be dry. But once you've embossed it, what I like is the fact that it pushes the embossing into those leaves, so it's not going to rub off. This glitter paste is amazing. It looks fabulous, it stays glittery, and it doesn't rub off. It's brilliant, and I just think it lifts that card, especially on the ivy. I just think it lifts it beautifully. Okay, so let's get on and make the card, otherwise we're going to be here all day. So for your base card, you need a piece of coloured cardstock which measures 11 by 4 1/4. Okay, I did say bring a pen and a piece of paper, didn't I? So 11 by 4 1/4. and you're going to score it at 2 3/4 and 5 1/2, and then you're going to fold that over like so, just burnish it so that it's creased beautifully, and then you're going to fold this one back on itself, and that's going to give you your Z. Okay, so that's your back bit, and then you're going to do exactly the same on the second piece, and the second piece measures 8 1/2 by 3 1/8. Now I know it always sounds a bit fiddly doing eighths, but honestly it's so easy, it's worth it, it really is. And I've always worked in inches, can't be doing with centimetres. So again, we're doing exactly the same, scoring it on the middle line, which was 4 1/4, and then this line is 2 1/8. Okay, so again we're going to fold that back on itself, so that gives us our second Z. Okay, and then that's going to fold, that's going to sit there like that. Okay, but before we do attach that, we're going to use our designer paper and add that to the back of the card. So this excuse me, this designer paper is from the Vintage Garden. The other one that I've done, this one, is from the Collage Florals, and I've used the same colourways on my stenciled flowers and leaves because I think it works for both pads. So this piece of designer paper is 4 1/8 by 2 5/8, and it needs to sit on the back here with just that very tiniest little mat and layer. Okay, so if we add this down, and I'm using Lisa's Fabulous glue because I don't use anything else, to be honest, anymore. It's awesome stuff, and it will stick anything to anything. You know how your tongue sticks to ice? Well, this glue is like that. Got a bit much up there, but it dries clear, so if you do get a bit of leakage, don't worry, because it'll dry clear and you won't know. Okay, so that's my back piece, and then I'm going to decorate this piece here. Now this piece of paper came from that paper pad, and it is just 1/2 of one sheet, so it sort of follows on. Okay, you don't have to do that, you can use a totally different piece down here if you wanted to. I just thought it looked nice matching. So this piece is 4 1/8 by 4 1/8 by 2 5/8. This piece is 4 1/8 by 5 3/8. Sorry, I said that wrong, didn't I? This piece is 4 1/8 by 2 5/8, because obviously it's a lot smaller. So we've just add this down here, and then when we come to add the other Z piece, what is going to happen is it's going to sit, it's going to butt up to this piece here. So this piece here is going to butt up to that piece there, so you know you're going to get it in exactly the right position. See, now that looks completely central on that card, which is what you're after. Okay, right, so I'm going to put this down here, so that's my glue for that, and this piece is going on here. All right, so make sure you glue in the right sides, otherwise you'll end up in a mess and you need to cut another piece. So I'm going to turn it around on its side, and I'm going to put that one piece up against the other, and then just stick it down, making sure it's central. And lift that up and rub that down. Okay, so that's your main piece. Now this is what I mean about it splaying. You see, if you leave it like this and you stand it on your table, eventually it might fall over, or it might just, it doesn't look right when it's standing up, because it should be like that, not like that. So I cut an extra piece, and this little piece is 3 1/2 by 3/4. Okay, and then I've just scored it at 1 7/8, 1 3/4, and 2 5/8. So I've got 4 little squares. So I'm going to fold the middle and then fold the others back on themselves. Okay, could do with it being square, so just make sure that it's square when you've folded it. And then you're going to put that, making sure you've got it the right way up, like that, so that your middle V points towards the top of your card, okay? And I'm going to put glue on here on one side. Make sure I've got my V in the right place, so the V in the middle points towards the top of the card, and place that down in the middle. Make sure that's secure, and then I can just add my glue to the top piece. I know you can't really see it, and then fold that, keep my finger on that, and then fold that piece down on top of it. Okay, so that's going to stop it splaying. Okay, if you want it to stand a little bit further apart, then just make that piece a little bit longer. All right, it's entirely up to you. That piece can be as long or as short as you want it, really. Okay, and then we're going to decorate. So then we've got a piece of white card to go in here, and this piece of white card is 4 1/8 by 3, and we're talking inches. Okay, so I'm going to pop this down. I just think this is the cutest card, and it's not going to be too expensive to post either, so you could do these for Christmas cards, any sort of cards really, any occasion. I think these flowers are just so versatile. You can use them for anything. If you do sort of like reds and whatever, especially with these, if you use reds on here, they'd make fantastic poinsettias, wouldn't they? So that's that. And then we're just going to decorate with our leaves. Now I'm using different leaves because I've already stenciled them, so I thought, well, I might as well use what I've already got. So if I just place that down first, so that I know where I'm going, and then my little with love is going up the top. Now the with love words, all I did was take a piece of card and I just brushed over it with the same colour inks that I've used on all my stenciling, and it's just totally random. I've used the ink that's left on the brushes. I've gone down with the Tranquil Waters first, and then just highlighted little areas in pink. And you can't really see much pink on here, but there is pink on there, I promise you. So if I put that down first, then that's done and out of the way, and then we can concentrate on the flowers. Okay, so if I put that up there, like so, and I've already got all my little pads on the back of my leaves and my flowers, just to save a little bit of time. Now remember that you've got a sticky pad on the back here, so you want this leaf to sit on this piece of card. Don't go and stick it over the edge, because if you stick it down here, it's not going to lift up properly. So if I pop that down there, so shall I put that down first? Yeah, I'm going to put that down there. So again, using the one lot of stenciled leaves that I'd already done. So if I pop this down here, and then I can pop my flowers down. So if I pop this one down first, I'm going to make sure I put it the right way, because to me there's a right way and a wrong way for those flowers. Oh, I think there is. And I'll pop that one there, like that. How simple is that? So yeah, there you go. 2 cards, dead cute. I think they'd be perfect for Christmas cards, especially if you're posting abroad. When you think of the cost of the postage, I think those size cards would be absolutely perfect to send abroad. You know, USA, Canada, Spain, wherever. I just think they're perfect. So there you go, there's my cards for today. I know we've run over a little bit, but I wanted to go through that die cutting and embossing with the flowers. So give it a go, and don't be scared of it. And if you emboss it wrong, put it through again. It's not a problem. It will re-emboss beautifully. Okay? Thanks very much for joining me, everybody. I really appreciate it. See you soon. Bye now.